go.
Wow, we've been, we finished our 24 hours of Percona, the longest conference stretch we've ever had in one go round. It's been a wildly successful show, so we're really happy with, the outcome. Over 6,500 people tuned in. That's a testament to, how much reach there is on the internet and how eager people are for good content. Super excited about, having that. And I think, Bronwyn, you and Val have done, a marvelous job, helping to shape this conference, build it up, ensure that, everybody got what they needed when they needed it, and made sure the schedule was published and everything. But it doesn't always go smoothly behind the scenes, right? And so, I think there's always those kind of stress points, those, like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And I think the first one for us was probably, when COVID started locking everything down.
Take it back a couple of steps. That was definitely,
what were we, like 6 weeks out, 5 weeks out from the conference, the conference when things started really locking down. So we went from, we're selling tickets and we have sponsorships to everything is closed almost overnight.
Pretty much, yeah. I felt like during that time we were the coronavirus watchtower, because at the time it was when all those conference cancellations were coming in. So, oh, hey, this one is news today. And then a couple of hours later, oh, look, this conference canceled. And we were kind of getting to a point where we were like, right, I really don't think at this stage it's going to work for us.
Yeah. And having to pivot quickly, and, part of the challenge with all of this is, like, there have been so few virtual conferences that have actually been successful. It's hard to find a pattern and copy. And there's a lot of software in the last, 6 months that have just appeared because now we'll go out of beta, or we'll, rush this to market. And it was interesting because some of the feedback we got was, oh, yours was the best virtual conference, and you've, did things, differently than everyone said. So anyways, it's one of those things that, it's interesting to see how everyone's done a little different. And I think for us, trying to pivot, I think the mantra, keep it simple, was probably the best for us, right? I mean,
and at the same time, I would say, I think what Bron said, like keeping it simple is really important, but also, like, as you said, behind the scenes, it's nothing but simple. Like there's lots of communication, and I would say that the way Bron communicated all the time with the speakers, with the hosts, with everyone, set like a very good base to start from, because we were really all on the same page. So it looks like it looked really simple. We tried to take it like that, but also there's lots of things going on at the same time.
Well, and I think keeping it simple, that's why we chose a single track, right? Let's keep it as one stream, one one thing, because as you start to multiply that in a normal conference, it's hard to have like 6 rooms, 10 rooms. I mean, we've had 12 rooms at once. We've had 5 rooms at once. We've had, and like the more you add, the more difficult it is, but the more streams you have, also the more difficult it is as well. So I think, starting off simple, especially for anyone's first conference that's online, makes a lot of sense. Now, unfortunately, picking 24 hours, it was interesting, and why did we pick 24 hours? I think having a global audience, it made sense, right? Certainly what we saw was, the traffic at the beginning of the conference was much higher than at the end in terms of, those that were on. But knowing that, we've got people in, the Asia time zones, and in Europe and in Australia, and, all over the world, having localized content seemed to work because, we kept our numbers up pretty much through the whole thing. We had a decent turnout.
Yeah, they were pretty consistent. I mean, they did drop off slightly at different times, but for the most part, we had a pretty consistent audience throughout the 24 hours. And, going back to the single track, and obviously, it was difficult for us to decide on a single track, because typically we're used to having 4, 5, 6, 7, up to 10 or 12, like you said, different tracks. And it's okay in an in-person setting. People can pick and choose the technologies that they're interested in. They can go between that. But I think by having it all as one track, you're trying to include all the various different technologies into that track. So that was a bit of a challenge for us as well. When we go back to creating the agenda, we had over 100 talks that we'd selected for our in-person conference. So we really had to kind of go through all of those and try and, obviously we reached out to those that had indicated that they would be happy to present virtually. But making sure that we covered all of the key topics, and then as well as that in different time zones, and finding those speakers that, we didn't want to ask them to get up at 3, 4 or 5 in the morning if it didn't suit them. So, I think we had quite a diverse range of speakers, and somehow, luckily, it worked out. I don't think we had maybe 1 or 2 speakers that it was a bit of an inconvenient time for, but a lot of them, they were local. It was their local time zone. They were starting their day or ending their day, but that was definitely a tricky one, but it actually, I don't know, somehow worked out for us. It just goes to show you, though, how many different nationalities or where people are coming from that actually attend and speak at the in-person conference. It's quite a diverse set, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And we were able to fill in every time zone, every location, right? And that was a big positive, because we did have such a broad, group.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, one of the bigger challenges was figuring out how to get access to everybody, right? So from a tech stack perspective, Bronwyn, you kind of kept it simple, right?
I guess when we were looking at the tech stack and what is the way that we were going to present, my inbox was like flooded with, we're offering, like you were saying, a virtual solution. We can have these big fancy virtual expo halls. We can have multiple tracks. There's all these solutions that we can implement and, in a turnkey situation, or so they say. But, we had realistically about 6 or 7 weeks to figure this out. So as you can imagine, I wasn't overly keen on trying to implement, a big piece of new technology that we would then base the conference off. And, going back to our roots really as a remote company, and again, simplifying it, realistically, it's what you and I are doing here right now. We're chatting, we could be presenting, and, ultimately we use Zoom in our everyday life as a remote first company all the time. We're well used to it. So my whole thing was, right, okay, so we need something to present from that people are familiar with. And I think Zoom has definitely been one of the more popular platforms for telecommuting or for virtual meetings. And then we need a solution to be able to broadcast it for people to see it. So we didn't necessarily want to give people access to the Zoom link, but we've seen a lot of conferences who have done that and have gone down that route. They've had Zoom bombings or people interrupting their meeting, and we just wanted to make sure that didn't happen. So we really restricted the Zoom chat or the Zoom channel, and we used Restream, which is like a third-party streaming tool that will help you to stream to, like, I think they do like over 30 different sites that you can stream to. So ultimately we just picked YouTube as our main one, and Twitch, and then we also did stream to Facebook Live. But actually when we had worked through it, initially we were just going to live stream to YouTube. And I remember, Matt, you saying, I think we should broaden our horizon a little bit. And, we had all the testing done straight to YouTube from Zoom, and it was pretty seamless. But you thought that you'd just give us one last challenge about 2 weeks beforehand.
Well, we had, 10 to 15% watched on Twitch.
It was about that in the end. So, it worked out. It worked out in the end. And, the whole thing with Restream is it was pretty easy in that, there's just a streaming key that you plug in from Zoom. Some organizations have it quite locked down, but our IT team were involved in that, and they kind of set up a separate user group for a couple of us who would be the admins of the meeting. And it was literally just putting in your streaming key into Restream. And once you click that on Zoom, it actually automatically broadcasts once you have it all configured in the back end. So from that perspective, the planning of it was pretty straightforward. We could get the links in advance, and it was just a matter of plug and play when the conference got started.
Well, and I mean, so really it was just go on, present your presentation on Zoom.
Yeah.
Plug in restream to all these different locations, fully public, everybody can get it, increase your audience. And that kind of like flow just worked.
Yeah.
And also they were like, as you said, applications that everyone knows. So you don't need to complicate anyone's lives more than it already is. So I think it was a great option. Like for the speakers, they already know Zoom, people go to YouTube or Twitch. So.
And how did we do chat?
So we use Slack for chat. Again, it's something that we in Percona use, and we just figured, look, I think it would be a nice place to have a hangout area for everybody to come and chat to, for us to be able to give like important announcements, for example, if we had to switch the stream or the links and things like that. So we made a Slack chat. We made it public and invited, sent the link out to everyone who had pre-registered and put it on the website. And within there was like a general chat room, and then there was technology specific, so we had like a MySQL one or a MongoDB one, and then also by request we had some different language ones as well. So there was a couple of people.
We even had a bar.
We did. Yeah, so that was more like the very casual hangout bar or the pub area. So and again, I think a lot of people are familiar with Slack, and it just seemed like the most natural place to have it, instead of trying to open up the YouTube chat. It's not it's all public. It's you can't have those like kind of one-to-one conversations that Slack allows you to do. So I saw some good connections. People were getting along and making new friends even, and chatting away. So I think that was the best.
Yeah, and also gave it the possibility for a lot of people to have conversations with experts that they in other settings they would never maybe even be able to attend live. So that was really good.
Now, from a logistics perspective, I know it went off pretty well. I don't think we had any major hiccups, other than there was like the logo thing that people got a little upset about. But other than that, I think it went pretty well. But there was a lot of work to make sure that speakers could get in and do what they needed to do, and that they had the right internet connection. Because here's the thing, right? You just don't know if people's internet is going to be good. I did a recording with one of the speakers as a promo, and his internet was so bad I couldn't understand him, and then the next day it was fine. So we were able to record it. So it's like it's hit or miss sometimes. So tell us about the things that we did to ensure that speakers were taken care of.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me, simply because it's live, people are presenting remotely, and anything can happen in between. So I kind of gathered up our marketing team over the 24 hours, and we kind of each took different slots, and we set up a different Zoom room. So in that Zoom room, we were going to use the same platform to test as we were going to present. So we went through the speaker audio checks, the video checks. Can they share their screen? Do they know where the mute button is? If there's two presenters, do you know how to hand over controls, different things like that. And also, while it was great for making sure, and luckily we didn't have any problems with anyone's internet whatsoever, which was great. But also, secondary to that, it would also alert us, if a speaker doesn't show up, are they going to join the live stream? Do we need to make provisions to have either pre-recorded content or, pull some other content that we can display? Because it's not like an in-person event where you can go, hey guys, I'm sorry that, the speaker's not here. Let's move along to another room. I mean, you will instantly lose your audience if you have a blank space for an hour. So not only did we, it was a last chance for speakers to ask any questions or, any concerns that they had when presenting, but it also enabled us to be prepared to make sure that, our speakers were there, they were going to show up, and we didn't need to pull in replacement content.
Yep, and we also did pre-recordings.
We did for the most part, yeah. So, we requested all speakers to pre-record their sessions on Zoom. We did actually help a couple of those that wanted, or a lot of people were able to do it themselves as well. And that was just in case of, internet issues or that they can't make it or whatever the reason might be.
I think it was great also for us and them to realize also the real length of their talk, because some realized that it was going to be shorter, or maybe they had to shorten it a bit. So that was good also.
Yeah, it gave us a good idea. Now, we didn't have to, by default, use any of those pre-recorded talks. One or two of them did request that they could use their pre-recorded talk, but it was all recorded like specifically for Percona Live.
Yeah, so our preference was live.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And actually, so it was just backup just in case there was a problem. So, you know, these are the things. You have to think of the contingencies of all the things that are going to happen. And the one thing that we kind of, like, we knew about, but we didn't anticipate it being as big of an impact, was ending early, right? Val, you mentioned ending early, right? We thought, you know, there's going to be some speakers who go long. And I think we had one that might have went like 1 minute over. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, people weren't long. They were very diligent about ending, you know, on time. Mm-hmm. The problem was those that ended like super early.
Yeah, and also like you don't know how early. So at some point we had like, you created these short videos, and we had like, I don't know, 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes and a half, and we had to be, you know, listening and see, is he gonna end now, or maybe just one more question. So you had like those videos ready. What I did, I named the videos by like the length, and I had them like there in order. And depending on how it went, like if there was one more question, I would jump to a shorter one and have it ready. So when it finally ended, I would share my screen and share my audio and play the video. You have to remember also to turn off all your notifications, because you're sharing your sound as well, which is something to bear in mind.
But actually, like, just to take it a step back from that, I mean, so we had filler content in case speakers didn't show up, and we had maybe 2-minute clips of, you know, thanks for watching, we'll be back shortly. But Matt, like, you know, we were kind of saying, hey, any chance you could like record some content? Or
I actually had to run out and, like, you know, like I do it for my back porch, you know, so then you don't got to see my messy room behind me or my dog. But you know, like, so I run out to the porch and I'm like, okay, what should I talk about? War stories. All right, you know, hey, let's talk about some of these consulting stories. And you want to keep people engaged during the sessions and in between the sessions. You know, they might like go off and go get a drink or sandwich or whatever, but you don't want them to log off and then just forget about you and go off and do other things as well. So, you know, finding that right balance of filler content and not is super important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think on the fly you did a great job coming up with that. So thank you.
Yeah, funny stories.
And well, I suppose as well as that, then Matt, you were also one of our hosts. So you started and you were our first and last host, but you know, we had a lot of other hosts in between.
Yeah, you need someone to keep the process moving along, right? So who's going to be the person who is, you know, kind of the DJ, or, you know, checking for, you know, comments and issues and, you know, things like that. And you want to have some pre-scripted questions if possible, but you want to keep the flow moving and make sure that people get introduced and, you know, show up in the right spot. I think that's really important.
Yeah. And I think, well, our hosts, I mean, I remember sending the question out and I went out to all of the staff at Percona. So anyone and everyone had an opportunity to be a host as well. So, you know, I think we must have staff in about 37 or 38 different countries now. So, you know, it's just, you know, there was no chance that we wouldn't be covered across all time zones to have a host who would be able to, you know, to facilitate all the speaker questions and things like that. So, and it was also good that it wasn't just, you know, the same old, like we had people from all different teams. And it was nice to see, you know, it wasn't just
different styles. And,
yeah, exactly. And like, totally different functionalities. And, you know, it was funny because also the different personalities then, like, you know, you have some people who are more than happy to go on and just chat away and talk and, you know, do it on the go, whereas other people might be a bit more reserved and, you know, they kind of want a more structured way of hosting. And I mean, but it worked. I think the flow kind of, it all kind of worked together.
It's also more entertaining for people watching to see different hosts and on the same style during the 24 hours.
Like the 24-hour telethons, right? Like, you know. So what kept both of you going for 24 hours?
Coffee?
Coffee?
Yeah, definitely. Lots of coffee.
No, but I remember saying to Val, obviously a couple of weeks out, right, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to manage her from this time to this time, and then we'll have, a buffer where we're both together, and then I'll go off, and then you can, but what was that like, Val, when we had that brainwave? Val, hang on a minute.
We quickly realized that it wasn't possible for one person to do everything, especially during the changes in the talks. That's like the busiest part for behind the scenes, because like you have one person speaking and you have to keep track of time for them, so reminding them, some hosts would do it, but we also did it like 10 minutes left, 5 minutes left, and then you also have to see if you will need like fillers, like filling content, and how long. You need to monitor the chat to see if there are any questions. We also had like all the the different applications like YouTube, Twitch, everything open to see that everything was going smoothly. We would send links for the surveys about the speakers like right after they ended, because like then you didn't have time and it would like too much time in between. So those were, I think those were the main things we were doing, but it's like, it's not many things, but it's everything at the same time.
Yeah, so, that's what makes it hard. It's all at once within like a minute.
Yeah, you also like if there's a change in the host, you will also like contact the host and open a chat, like the two of us with the next host, and tell them what we are planning to do with this talk, if we will use like filler content or not, if there are any more questions, in YouTube or something like that. So those were the main things that we were doing, but it was like everything in between like talks. So it was impossible for only one person to do all of that at the same time.
Yeah. Another thing as well is some of the recordings, and so we automatically recorded the meeting on Zoom as well as, the backup on YouTube. But I remember thinking, right, our web team and our graphics team are going to want to be able to upload these recordings as soon as possible. So I don't really want to give them, a 12-hour or a 24-hour recording. So I remember remembering to start and end the recording after every talk as well. So that was another big thing, and I think it has ultimately helped. Most of all of the videos should be up at this stage now. So that was definitely a big thing. But I remember as well, Matt, talking about things that could have potentially gone wrong, and I think we were about 11 hours in, and we were and then all of a sudden you stumbled upon something. You were like, hey, I think YouTube's going to cut us off maybe after 12 hours. And I was kind of going, that's not something that we tested, because honestly, and
that's the thing, right? Some of this is, first time through, you've got to be a little bit more agile and realize there's going to be problems. Yeah. And I think that was really important to set the expectation of the users, right, up front, and realize, and we did have to cut over, at one point, and we were able to do that, but everyone kind of expected it, because we're like, look, guys, you're going to have to re-log on to the stream, apologies.
Yeah, but I think as well, like with that, we gave ample warning. So before the speaker, and we even told the speaker, look, after your talk, we're going to be flipping the stream. It also was a chance for us to get rid of the big Percona logo that was appearing at the bottom of the stream, but for us to restart it. So we set that expectation at the top of the hour. We're going to be restarting the stream. It's going to take about 20 seconds. Check back for the link if it changes. But, I think ultimately it went pretty seamlessly. I mean, it was literally just off and on again. That was it.
Well, let's wrap up with, the final thing, positive, negative takeaways from this experience, right? Like, so, Val, what did you take away from this? What were positive, negatives?
For me, it was like super awesome in general. Like, I was super thrilled. It was my first Percona Live and my first online event, and definitely the first so long. And I felt really good with the attitude of people in the chat. Like everyone was like super kind and excited to be here anywhere, and the speakers were super passionate about what they were talking about, and that kept you awake and interested. They did awesome. The hosts were great, and it felt really good working all together from different teams. Like that was really good. I would say negative. No negative, but for if we have a second one, not soon, I hope, I would maybe prepare more things in advance now that we know, like more filler content with different lengths, like more varied, and questions for the speakers and things like that. But all in all, like the feeling was super positive. I don't know if it was the coffee or what, but by the end I was like super excited.
Oh, and what about you? Like, what were your big takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it was, it was a big learning curve for us. We had pretty much zero expectations. I think the positive thing and one of the most important things for us to remember going forward is that, this did give anyone access to Percona Live, what you would have seen at a Percona Live in-person conference, albeit, pared back a bit, but it kind of gave everyone the opportunity who has ever wanted to or can't for whatever reason attend a conference to be able to come together to be part of that community while we're all in it together, right? So you haven't got some people having a great time in Austin and others are watching it at home. And I think, ultimately bringing everybody together, having like an awesome community and people that actually appreciate it, right? That are passionate, like you were saying, Val, about good content. It was easily delivered and easy to watch and follow. So I think that was, those are the real positive things for us. And of course the fact that, it didn't go, we didn't have any major issues was also a big thing. I think if we look at the way that we stream in future, I would probably be less likely to stream on Facebook, for example. I mean, we didn't get a lot of views there. And yeah, I mean, I think overall, I think, Val, you kind of covered it a lot. But, Matt, like you've been around Percona Live. I mean, this would have been my 5th or 6th one, I think. But how many is it for you now?
Depends on if you count the ones that were before Percona Live that were still like my skill conference, right? So
sure, yeah.
I was since way back then.
So this is the first time we've had to take it online. I mean, what were your...
The first time we had to take it online. Definitely the outreach was good. The buzz was good. I think people were very happy. It was interesting to see people jump in and out.
Yeah.
I think that, it was really good for like the keynote section. We maintained a pretty consistent audience through the first couple hours.
Yeah.
But then as topics switched between different technologies, then you started to see people jump in and out, which could be good for their work schedules. But it might have been like a little less conducive for them to kind of just sit down and say, like, I'm going to attend this one conference. Right?
Yeah.
So it's something to be mindful of. I think, the thing that though everyone missed, and we did try our best, was, that camaraderie, post, conference, let's get together and meet people and collaborate. If there was a way to, do like, Zoom social hour or something as part of this where, people get on video and just chit chat or whatever. Yeah. I don't know what, but might be something to consider because you want that camaraderie.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I think overall, it's not going to, hopefully it's not going to replace the in-person one again later this year. And, I think it's important though for us to be able to offer, some online content, like we said, for those that can't, that can't necessarily attend in person. But, the in-person element was definitely missed. And, hopefully we can get it all back on track. And, we'll see how things play out for Amsterdam and for Austin next year. We're still scheduled to be back there next year. We found a great new venue, and Austin's it's an awesome city. It's a lot of fun, and so hopefully we'll be back there again next year.
All right. All right. Well, that's our wrap.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks, Val.
Thanks. Talk to you later.